CatLoveDreamingBeach.com.
So I'm just
CatLoveDreamingBeach.com.
responding as a video because I really wanted to talk about this hope that I hear on different creators' videos where the sentiment is basically the idea that, let's listen to this for a sec.
14th Amendment, Section 3. No person shall be a senator or a representative in Congress, or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support this Constitution, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. This section was originally designed to prevent former Confederates from holding office after the Civil War. But it could theoretically apply to anyone who engages in insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. government. For a person who has been involved in insurrection to be disqualified from running for president, they would likely need to be formally charged, convicted, and subject to the disqualification as outlined in this clause. The application of this provision to a presidential candidate would likely be subject to legal challenges and court rulings.
Exactly. So, but then what happened? Well, it says if you do TLDR, what did the court rule about Donald Trump being an insurrectionist and able to run for president? TLDR, too long, didn't read. ChatGPT says. ChatGPT, by the way, is now current up to the minute. It used to be like 3 months behind. Now it's up to the minute. The courts have not definitively ruled that Donald Trump is an insurrectionist and therefore ineligible to run for president. They have not definitively ruled that he is an insurrectionist and therefore ineligible to run for president. While the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause could theoretically apply, no court has made a final ruling disqualifying him from running based on involvement in the January 6th Capitol attack or other actions. Legal challenges regarding his eligibility are ongoing, and any decision would likely depend on further judicial proceedings. So it says D-Dump has not been legally declared an insurrectionist in a criminal court. However, during the January 6th insurrection, he was accused of inciting the events that led to the Capitol riot. In his second impeachment trial, the Senate acquitted him, but the House of Representatives had charged him with, quote, incitement of insurrection. While some legal experts and lawmakers have suggested that the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause could be applied to disqualify him from running for president, but the court has not yet ruled on this matter. So, despite the accusation and political discussions about his role in the insurrection, no final court ruling has definitively labeled him an insurrectionist, nor barred him from running for president. So I said, shit seems whack and totally not cool and very unconstitutional as well. And ChatGPT says, I get why it might feel that way. This situation is complicated and it can be frustrating when there are such serious accusations without clear legal outcomes. I'm going to move this here so it doesn't look so bad like I'm reading over there, because I am. But yeah. The 14th Amendment's insurrection clause was designed to prevent people who actively rebel against the government from holding office. The 14th Amendment's insurrection clause was designed to prevent people who actively rebel against the government from holding office, but applying it to someone like Trump is a major legal challenge and hasn't been fully tested in court yet. It hasn't. It's understandable to feel that the process is messy or inconsistent, especially when it involves high-profile figures and legal complexities it's a good reminder of how important it is for the courts to uphold the Constitution in a way that aligns with. It's important, however, it's a good reminder of how important it is for the courts to uphold the Constitution in a way that aligns with its intent, even when it's a difficult or controversial matter. Oh yeah, ChatGPT seems to get the fucking clues. Hasn't he been tested in court in this matter? So ChatGPT, as we all know, or you should know if you don't know, could be wrong and it could be off. But according to this, as of today, December 13th, 2024, there are no active legal cases challenging the former president's eligibility to be inaugurated in January 2025 under the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision on March 4th, 2024, in Trump v. Anderson, affirmed that individual states do not have the authority to disqualify a presidential candidate under this provision. Such actions fall within the purview of Congress, it says, from the Supreme Court. While some states like Maine and Colorado have previously attempted to disqualify Trump based on the insurrection clause, these efforts have been unsuccessful, and the Supreme Court's ruling effectively ended these state-level challenges, supposedly. And given the Supreme Court's decision and the absence of new federal legislative actions, there are currently no pending cases that could prevent Trump's inauguration in 2025. So, I had hope, like, there's lots of creators out there who, I believe that they are practicing wishful thinking and delusional fantasies that feel good. It feels so good to think that it's not going to happen. It feels so good to cling to the hope that just maybe, somehow, someone who gives a fucking shit about anything that matters in this god green fucking earth and blue earth would say, no fucking way, we're not going to let this motherfucker in. And people want to believe it. People are clinging to the hope and the wish and the, oh my God, wouldn't it just be so great? And oh, the drones are going to figure it all out. Those are drones. Those are anti-Trump drones. And we're going to get all the things. But honestly, I don't think so. I was listening to a creator who's like talking in code now because so many things are getting banned and censored. And my son was overhearing it, and he said, that sounds like a schizophrenic break. And he was like, that's giving me the creeps. I don't want to hear that. And I couldn't deny that the person sounded like they were just telling a sci-fi delusional fantasy. And if somehow the magical heroes are going to rise up and save us from this fascist tyrannical dictator that apparently was voted for by 1/3 of the country, great. But at this point, it just seems like a bunch of frogs boiling in the pot, trying to convince each other that this magic strainer is going to scoop them all out in the nick of time. No, honey, we're just getting burnt the fuck up because this country is filled with racist, misogynistic xenophobes, bigoted, ignorant, willfully ignorant, fucking assholes, absolute morons. And that is who and what won the day. So that's my takeaway. Not Not very bright, fluffy unicorns and rainbows and shit, but at this point, I think we're fooling ourselves. So this video is replying to a comment, but then the video response kind of doesn't seem to have anything to do with the comment, because I'm talking about this idea that Trump is not going to get elected after all. So it's kind of not exactly responding to the comment, because the comment is assuming he does get the Electoral College votes, but then somehow is not eligible after that fact. So I'm kind of responding to not exactly her, but the video that was on, which is this idea that somehow he's magically not going to be inaugurated, which is what we all seem to be hoping and wishing and praying for. But because of what I'm saying in this video, this is why I don't think that that's going to happen, unfortunately. Although, I still have hope. Hope!
CatLoveDreamingPage.com.
Part 2. Oh, by the way, yes, this is my very, very cute butter dish. This is vegan butter. This is beautiful. I love it. Now, I actually want to reply to that comment about if after the Electoral College gets voted in for Trump Vance, but then Trump gets disqualified, does Vance become president? Or does Vance also get disqualified? What do you think? Let's see. I gotta eat something first. My favorite thing in the whole world, tofu, ramen, bok choy, vegan tofu, ramen, bok choy soup, baby bok choy. Yum! Almost done. So I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a lawyer of any kind, and I'm not a political scientist, but I just did a little bit of research, and my quick searching gives me the answer that the miracle that we're all hoping and wanting is extremely unlikely, and that if J.D. Vance and Donald Trump were both deemed ineligible, then it's possible that the Speaker of the House would become president. As of December 13th, 2004, Mike Johnson serves as the Speaker of the House for the U.S. House of Representatives, and he's a fucking scumbag and a transphobe. So that's not any good, okay? So there's that possibility. But then we also discussed, other options. So if they didn't want to do that, if they did determine significant election fraud, which could be from either voter suppression, allegations that certain groups were intentionally prevented from voting, or ballot manipulation, claims that votes were illegally altered, duplicated, or lost, or electoral fraud, issues with the certification of the casting of electoral votes, where there might be questions about the integrity of some states' votes. So if the fraud was significant enough to alter the outcome of the election, and perhaps it was discovered that Kamala Harris actually won the popular and electoral college votes, but the certification process had been manipulated. This is all hypothetical. How this could be uncovered: investigation and lawsuits, election audits, whistleblowers, constitutional and legal implications, election law violations. If significant election fraud is uncovered, there are several legal avenues to address the situation. The Electoral Count Act of 1887 lays out procedures for Congress to address objections to the electoral vote. If fraud or misconduct is discovered, Congress could choose to invalidate certain states' electoral votes. challenges to the certification. If it's shown that there was fraud in the electoral process, then Kamala Harris, as the sitting vice president, could potentially face a conflict of interest if she were involved in the certification. In this case, she would be in a position to oversee the certification of results, but that was true for Mike Pence and literally anyone who's running for a second term. So that's bull. Okay, legal battles. A massive legal battle would likely ensue involving both the executive branch and the courts. A key question would be whether the fraud was significant enough to affect the overall election results, and if so, it could result in new certifications of electoral votes or even in new elections in states where the fraud is suspected. Congressional action. Congress, during a joint session to certify the Electoral College votes, could raise objections to certain states' results. They would debate the validity of the votes from states involved in fraud. And if enough objections were raised, it could prevent Trump from officially receiving enough votes to become president, hypothetically and allegedly. If Kamala Harris did win, how would she be sworn in? Disqualification of Trump and Vance. If the fraud allegations are serious enough and lead to the disqualification of Trump and J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris would essentially become the legitimate president-elect. However, this process would need to unfold within the legal framework established by the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act. Recertification of results. If results are amended or fraud is proven, Kamala would have an official pathway to the presidency. However, this is complicated by the need for the states involved to formally amend their electoral vote certifications, which would require legislative action in those states. And congressional approval. If the corrected results show that Kamala Harris is the winner, Congress would need to certify these updated results. The Congress would also raise objections to the new certification, requiring further debate and additional legal proceedings. The Speaker of the House would be involved as well in determining what happens next. Potential constitutional crisis. If such fraud is uncovered and not resolved clearly, it could lead to a constitutional crisis. The process of certifying the results could be challenged, and without clear action from Congress or the courts, there might be significant political instability. Court rulings. Courts, particularly the Supreme Court, might be called upon to settle these disputes. If they ruled that Trump and Vance are not legally elected and that Kamala Harris had the legitimate votes, they would likely order that she be inaugurated as the president, although that is extremely unlikely, and we all know why. Post-certification. Once the fraud is legally confirmed and the election results are recertified, Kamala Harris would be sworn in as president. It could be hypothetical, but it would have to be significant election fraud uncovered and proven. And Harris would have to have a strong case to be declared the legitimate winner, assuming that fraud undermines the victory of Trump and Vance. And the process would likely involve extensive legal battles, legislative debate, and potentially court rulings. But the legal framework suggests that Harris would have the constitutional right to become president. If disputes remain, the presidential Succession Act and the 12th Amendment would guide the resolution. Presidential Succession Act of 1947 establishes the order of succession to the presidency in the event that both the president and vice president are disqualified, unable to serve, or have resigned. The Speaker of the House would be next in line to become the president. First in line is Speaker of the House. Second, after the Speaker, the President pro tempore of the Senate would be next in line. And then following the President pro tempore, the members of the cabinet are in line based on their office. e.g., Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, etc. Okay, so importantly, the speaker must be eligible to serve as president, i.e., a natural born citizen, at least 35 years old, and a U.S. resident for at least 14 years. The 12th Amendment addresses the process of electing the president and vice president, specifically how electoral votes are cast and counted. It primarily focuses on the process during the election, but in disqualification scenario, the amendment plays a secondary role, particularly in the terms of how Congress recertifies the election results, certifying, challenges, disqualification. So there's a lot more notes, and I don't have enough time to read through all of it, but in the event of disqualification or fraud, Congress would play a significant role and a critical role in determining how the election outcome is ultimately resolved. So, is it going to all magically happen in the next week or so? Probably not. Probably this motherfucker going to be it, and that's going to fucking suck, and we know it. Sucks fucking